welcome back. Matt Royal. Matt Royal, good buddy, man. Matt Royal joins us again and with the Royal Commercial Corp with senior level experience in developing and executing real estate strategies nationally and internationally. And now he brings all of that knowledge here.
Well, now I have to live up to that.
That's right. You know what's great, Matt?
What's that?
I'm standing, you're sitting, and we're about the same height.
Yeah, well.
Welcome back, first of all. I always have to comment on tall people because, it makes me feel short again, like when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the economic elements of new office space or retail space, because a lot of people who are considering opening an office or maybe upsizing their office or whatever it may be, there's probably a lot of questions they have.
Well, I run into that a lot, and whether it's retail, industrial, office, if you're having a new space or you're growing your existing or you're actually transitioning to a new facility, there's basically three elements of the whole process, from site selection, lease negotiation, construction build-out, and then your ongoing operations. And where most companies, large and small, whether it's office or retail or whatever type of space they have, where they end up going not wrong, where they spend more money than they need to, is they look at it in three separate silos: the real estate contract, the construction, and the ongoing operations. Well, you have three different entities, three different professionals doing those services, and they all have an objective and a goal, is to get it as low as they can. And as we all know, with every business or cost save, it just trickles downhill. And so you end up with the real estate guys and the CEO of the company or the president of the company saying, hey, this is our budget, we have to hit this. Well, and of course there's economy of scale in there too. So if you're talking about 1,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet, there's a big delta in there. But what happens is the real estate guys, they hit their goal, and it's 10% or 15% under market. You don't get as many concessions in there because you drove the rate down, which means your tenant improvement allowance, which can be anywhere from $5, $10, $20, $30 a square foot, gets reduced. And then and the real estate guys hit their number, and everyone's happy and everyone pats
themselves on the back. So when you say number, I mean, this is like the boss man says, here's kind of what we want to pay for to lease a building or buy a building.
Yes, and usually the phrase comes back, I don't want our budget to increase what we're paying for now, and we want to increase our space by 30% or 40%.
And you're like, there are some great spots out in Ellensburg that will allow you to do that.
Actually, there's some around town here too. But so what happens is real estate guys and the contracts and the brokers, they hit their numbers, and then they hand it over to the architects and to the construction management team. And the real estate contract had, instead of $20 in TI's, tenant improvement allowance, now it only has $12. So the architects design it up, everyone gets what they want, and then when it comes time to actually build it and engage the contractor, the same guy, CEO, looks at it and goes, oh man, that's too much. We got to quote unquote, value engineer some of this out.
It's kind of that new catchphrase, isn't it?
No, it's been around a long time.
It doesn't really just mean we need to build this cheaper.
Yeah. And so they end up saying, oh yeah, and the first thing that gets cut is your electrical requirements. Instead of 2 outlets per office, it's 1 outlet per office. Then the next thing you know, they start broadening the HVAC zones. They start cheapening up the carpet. They take the cable contract outside, and they just do some accounting wonders there. Magic. And they hit their number. And the construction guys, they pat themselves on the back and say, oh, we did great, yay. And then they move in, everything gets running and operating just fine. And 3 years into it, the poor sap of a facilities manager is looking at the carpet fading underneath the windows. Everyone in the office complains about there's no cooling, the lighting is poor. They have a little increase in staff, and so they're doubling up in their offices, and now it's costing them $800-900 per office to put in another cable power drop. And so each of the two people at bat, the real estate guy and the construction guys, they hit their nut, and they're long gone. You're 5 years into a 10-year deal, and now the operations guy is looking and saying, hey, this is costing us an inordinate amount of money. We've cleaned the carpets twice annually, which is good because we're in a Class A space. But the carpets are fading, they're tearing, they're wearing. Now it looks like, it doesn't look good. And so how do we get new carpet in here? Well, you have to pick up all the furniture, and we have to roll new carpet in. And
the cost per square foot goes up a lot when you got to move the furniture out.
Yes, it does. And then there's disruption to work. There's all these things that happen. And with the proper guidance from a good broker and a good executive that listens and looks to the future, you can actually plan that in ahead of time, because it depends on the position of the company, their cash, if they want to spend money out of their pocket. Some companies intentionally do it that way because they plan on selling the company in 5 years, 7 years. There's all sorts of different strategies involved in that, but knowing that before you even engage in where you're going to put your office, again, whether it's 2,000, 10,000, 50,000 square feet, having that plan drafted and following it will just would save you money in buckets down the road.
It sounds to me, it's almost like, moving your marble along like one of those Chinese checkered boards, right? And you try to move them all to one spot, but somebody moves one all the way there and then realizes that they can't get the next one there.
Yeah.
As opposed to, some type of strategically moving a little at a time, or making sure that the plans all coincide with each other.
Right. And then the drawback for, say, the facilities or operations manager at the end of the road is that, BOMA, Building Office Managers Association, IFMA, International Facilities Managers Association, they all put out annual statistics about what it should cost you per square foot for janitorial, what it should cost you per square foot for carpet, HVAC, utilities, blah, blah, blah. And when they start comparing their current rates in a Class A office with the BOMA standards, they'll say, hey, well, we're paying 15 to 20% more than everybody else is paying. Why is that? Well, everyone wrings their hands and ultimately ends up blaming the facilities manager, and he's the lowest man on the totem pole there.
He's just trying to make sure at the end of the day it all came together.
Yeah, and the people who did the deal 5 years previous, they're gone, and their commission checks their cash, and the contractor's on to some other project. But you're living with underpowered HVAC, under lumen
brownouts.
I mean, yeah. Somebody plugs a heater into their workstation and boom, takes out the whole section, everybody's computer.
Now, I will admit, in our office, they say there are no heaters allowed under the desk.
That's why.
That's why?
Because they've scoped out. And I'm not an engineer. I'm not a contractor.
No, I'm just saying, the IT guys are always very weary of the old the desk under desk heater.
Yeah,
typically that the girls use during the winter.
For several reasons. Because one, then what happens is that workstation's probably near the thermostat, and then it's heating everything up, cooling everybody down, and that's just a vicious cycle. So,
I'm gonna say it's that.
Okay, there you go.
Or fire. It could be a fire hazard. I don't know.
Could be a fire. But yeah, there's a lot of engineering and operational evaluations that need to go into when you're doing a project like that. And my recommendation is you get the whole team together to do that. You get your operations guy, you get your construction, your architect. Even when you're going to look at 2,000 to 3,000 square feet of office space, you turn to the landlord when you're initially looking at the space and say, "We'd like you to do us an as-built or a block plan of we need 6 offices and a kitchenette, cafe, whatever, and 3 conference rooms," and have the landlord draw that out for you, and then that gives you something to price out and what you're going to negotiate your tenant improvements on, and then you start making the value judgments on, are we going to stay here for 3 years, 5 years? Because if you say just 3 years and it turns into a 5-year or 7-year deal, well, you just put 3-year carpet in your 7-year office. And now when you do your renewal, you're not going to get a lower rate or freeze your rate. Their landlord's going to factor that back into your rent, disrupt you for several days.
So it's kind of these peripheral costs that start adding up too, right? I mean, it always sounds like, and Heather and I talk about this a lot here, people always want this great deal, but sometimes the good deal costs them just immensely in the end.
Oh, absolutely. And even, a lot of you go into the lobbies or some of the offices, they have a lot of flat, shiny surfaces, or they have a lot of glass. Glass has to be cleaned. And so when you have your janitorial...
The fish tank behind the secretary's desk.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't think it's called secretary.
Administrative assistant, yeah. So what happens is then you start paying those extra costs. And when hard times come and the budget starts to pinch up a little bit, they say, hey, let's cut back on janitorial. Then you got,
Plywood.
Employees out there washing the windows, wiping the windows down twice a day, or you cut your day porter service back in the restrooms, so on and so forth. And it just, if you don't go, sometimes it's not a huge issue, but sometimes you can tell a facility that's been planned well, managed well, the lease is written well. You've already covered all of those elements in it, and there's no surprises down the road, whether it's good times or bad. Doing a proper contract up front, getting all the parties involved, and having some people with experience in there will save you tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of the lease.
And not only that, the heartache. I mean, the
frustration,
pain, the frustration of thinking, man, I should have just done it a different way in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so important to have somebody on your side, and that's why that do-it-yourself mentality oftentimes just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, sometimes it does. After you've done it, and we talked about this in the initial show, whenever corporations or executive officers, they say, oh, yeah, we've done leasing before, and they do it once every 5, 7, 10 years, you can't, well, unless they're galactically brilliant, you just can't keep up with all of the facets of it, doing one activity once every 10 years. Can't do it.
Yeah, we're here with Matthew Royal of Royal Commercial Corp. We have about a minute left before we have to go to break. Talk a little bit more about those ongoing costs, because that would seem what really kills the deal, right? You get that deal at the beginning, but whether it's new carpet, whether it's cleaning, I mean, there's probably a whole gamut of different things that start to cost money that you don't always think about. A chip in the tile, or
absolutely, and that's one of the elements when you put the team up front, and you say, do we put in better carpet? Do we put in more powerful HVAC units? Do we pre-wire this for the future growth or expansion? Because putting it in beforehand is a lot less, obviously, than going back and doing it after the fact. Yeah. But what you're saying is, when companies get their lease and their construction done, that's an immediate cost saver, an immediate expense. But you have a 10-year lease, and what you saved in year 1, you're going to be paying 5-7% more year 2 through 10. And that adds up to just eat up whatever cost save you had in the first quarter of the year in which the lease started. So,
well, here's one more. We do have to go to break, but here's one more operational cost I have thought about, and I may be completely off the wall.
Well, we'll find out.
I am a big fan of those Dyson Airblade hand dryers that are in the restrooms. Yeah. And I always wonder, those things cost a couple $1,000, but then you don't have, God knows how many hand paper towels are being used. I would think, in my own mind, that would actually save you a bunch of money over the long run. You may not know a lot about bathroom papers, but
years ago when I was at Microsoft, I never saw anyone do a more extensive study on paper towels and the use of them, and trifold, bifold, quadfold, roller dispense. It was.
Do you know what they found?
Yes, I remember that, but I'm sure the James River Corporation has, I don't think they're around anymore, but we used the bifold, and it was ridiculous. But anyway.
So paper was less expensive?
That kind of thing is good to know, though.
Yes, but it's...
You're leaving everybody... So do you remember which was less expensive?
Well, this was years ago before the Dyson hand dryers came out, and now we have, the little hand... waver ones.
Yeah, the air blades.
Well, not the air blades, the one where you wave your hand in front of the electric eye and a little tiny 3-inch square comes out.
Yep.
And you have to
and
wait.
Then you just start banging on the thing, hoping it'll give you more paper towels.
That's the economy there, where they give you a 4-inch strip and you have to wait 10 seconds between each strip. You give up and you leave.
Screw it, I'm out.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? At least we all know we wash our hands.
Yeah. And you wipe them on your pants and walk out.
Matt, thanks so much for joining us. We have to go to break. Heather Moore is going to join us along with Matt and Glenn, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Brashenomics.